Ladies and gentlemen, it's our second meeting with Madhava Puri.
When we were messing around here, you told me you figured out some TikToks you wanted me to look at.
I do.
Yeah? Maybe we start there?
Let's do it. First news is about the dying snow leopard.
Okay.
Which was saved by people. In my opinion, people intervened into the natural process, and the examination revealed there was still food in his stomach, so although he had been injured...
It looked like pretty bad shape.
Yeah,
I see.
He has been injured for several days, yet his mother never gave up on him, persisting in hunting to feed him. And days later, when the snow leopard mother realized she could never save him, she reluctantly let him go. If we take leopards as humans, the mother cared about him to the moment she thought it makes sense. She gave him food, but then she decided not to. And how do you think about it?
I've been seeing other video clips, like there was some elephant mother who comes to the humans because her child has been stuck in mud, or there was some bear also, a bear cub that brought them to the mother. So there is family life in all these, species, at least the movable living being. There are attachment, and sometimes I think we may underestimate many other species. That I also saw something about crows, the blackbirds.
Yeah.
They're extremely intelligent and social, and can gossip and for miles. And now some humans are coming. They haven't been so good, but this one is nice because he gave us some food, and so this is going on. And in a desperate situation, then they sometimes turn to the humans for help. Like some deer got stuck in a fence like that, and then they called for some nice, kind human go there and take some risks.
These were wild animals. Probably they didn't know about humans and nothing like that.
Yeah, it's different from the crows because they're pretty much living close with the human being.
But if you try to translate it to human society, people are basically tend to help everyone up to the end. But whether it's good or not to do things like this, because that snow leopard should have died his natural death. This is one position. But the other position, people should care about everyone, save everyone. Maybe the ecosystem would change if we save every snow leopard. They will kill all other animals around. Maybe that's not good.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're also adaptive. We have seen examples of like a lion who's been left alone by this, or maybe the mother and the father were killed by humans and left a little lion cub, and then somebody else found it and brought it, and they brought it together with their dog, pet dog, a German Shepherd or something, and they didn't care. There was different species. They became friends, and also when the lion got really big and full grown, still they go there and give a hug to the human being. So there are some basic similarities that kind of go beyond pure instinct and conditioning. Because
I wanted actually to have your reflection in the Vedic way.
Yeah.
If you have some references from Vedic literature on that.
Well, there are quotes from the scriptures that certain species which are extremely dangerous, like snakes and scorpions, and that one is allowed to kill them on the spot because there's a high risk that they will...
There's no karma behind killing those animals.
I mean, if it's stated in the Shastra, it's okay, but the general principle is ahimsa, non-violence, and this is very big in Buddhism, as you know. So whenever somebody sees suffering, we kind of have an obligation to help, to mitigate suffering. But then again, it's a question when it's gone so far that it's no return.
I'm remembering that one episode from Srimad Bhagavatam when I'm not sure who, Rishabhadev maybe, he saved the deer, and he was too attached to this deer, so he spent all his life like caring for the deer, not for the Supreme Lord.
Yeah, there's a risk to become too much attached to another living being, but the general principle is that if one can help and relieve some suffering, one should do that. Otherwise, it is stated that you commit passive violence. Sometimes people who has a little Vedic knowledge, they think that, oh, this person or this animal or whatever is suffering because of karma. So yes, I just walk by, and that's not recommended, because then you commit passive violence. You have an obligation to help. And when it comes to human beings, it's like if you have a body which causes you a lot of suffering, whether it's your body or somebody else, that makes the mind very disturbed. When the gross body is suffering, the mind is agitated and in turmoil. And with a mind which is not peaceful, you cannot practice spiritual life. That's unfortunately how it is, because we have a gross material body, which is a source of more or less constant suffering. You have to tend to all its needs of food and all that stuff. And then you have a mind which is already craving everywhere to try to find some happiness. So it's very difficult to find peace.
Yeah.
But if you can manage to keep your body in balance, keep your mind in peace, then one can practice spiritual life quite easily.
You mentioned that it's a disturbance that happens many times. Like modern people are disturbed, but just by small touch. Does it mean they should never practice their spiritual life, or they should only care, be safe in a spot where their meditative surrounding is prepared for them to be meditating?
If you practice spiritual life, if you do meditation, for example, you will automatically be less and less sensitive for the external pleasant and unpleasant stimuli. Because actually it has nothing to do with the soul, really. It's basically because of our misidentification with the material body that there is suffering. Suffering comes from that.
But you just say to me a little bit contradictory thing to the previous saying that if you are disturbed, you cannot practice quite, qualitatively. But now you're saying, no, it's not, you can.
No, the thing is, a yogi, he may experience the same type of suffering or irritation like anybody else. Like there is a beautiful story about the Avanti Brahmana in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that he kind of gave up all his materialistic dreams and just took sannyas and simple dress. And then he met people that were just mocking him. They tried to steal his paraphernalia. They were, passing foul air and beating him. They were urinating on his food. I mean, can you imagine more insult than that? But because he was highly transcendental, he didn't care. But somebody who is high-strung, very much identified with the false ego, then he will be completely disturbed and angry and want revenge. And so this is the thing. Suffering is always there. But somebody who is sincerely practicing spiritual life, he simply tolerates. More tolerant than a tree, more humble than a straw on the street. That's a real yogi. While somebody who's identifying with the material body and his position, nationality, gender, whatever it is, if somebody's kind of threatening or insulting it or whatever, they got to, very, very irritated. But it's all it's a false dream. It's just an illusion.
Okay, I take that reflection as a positive regarding to saving the snow leopard about that by the screw of man. But that also doesn't mean we need to create some kind of Red Cross army and save every bear in the forest.
That's the thing. If somehow by providence you encounter such a situation, Krishna is there in your heart, is guiding the wanderings of the living beings. So some or another he may put you in such a situation, kind of a test, whatever. But that doesn't mean, as you say, that we start a big institution or that we start go looking for where can I find the next injured leopard or like this. Then it becomes an attachment and a distraction. So a yogi, he deals with every situation that is put in naturally by providence in the best way possible.
I think this is actually the case with many, so to say, bloggers nowadays. For example, a blogger is doing some content on some topic, maybe saving animals, for example. And then he chooses as his aim to actually find those animals. Maybe in some cases even injuring those animals beforehand to be able to save them on camera.
Wow.
I believe it could be the case. And by your response, I see that it's a bad practice.
Yeah. I mean, we have to find what we call a repository of faith, something you believe in. It can be this ism or that ism, communism, nationalism, environmentalism. And, there is a small Greta Thunberg inside everyone who has come fanatically into some kind of save the world or whatever you do. But the only real repository of faith is God, is Krishna. Everything else is temporary and doesn't ultimately have any deeper meaning. You can create a temporarily pleasant situation, but in the long run, everything will be gone and you will move on.
Now, I think let's move to the second clip. If you please open your laptop again. Recently, actor called Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa, who is well-known by his role of Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat, has died on December the 4th in the age of 75. I, by accident, knew that this guy, this actor, has actually he converted to Orthodoxy. So that didn't happen right away. Tagawa said that after moving to the United States, he was baptized in a Protestant church, but he felt no personal connection with God and spent a long time searching for his spirituality. A turning point occurred in 2015 during the filming of Priest's Son, A Confession of Samurai in Russia, where he played an Orthodox priest, and by looking at the pictures you can see him dressed as a priest.
Yeah, the church is in the background there.
Yeah. So his interactions with believers and his introduction to Orthodoxy so impressed the actor that he was soon baptized. And this is his direct speech now. When I began interacting with Orthodox people, I saw that they perceived their faith differently, more profoundly. It's impossible to explain in words and probably impossible to prove than representatives of other faiths with whom I had interacted. This impressed me greatly, and while working on the role, I tried to absorb as much as possible the spirit of the Orthodox faith that I felt in Russia. So, what do you think about this? And yeah, he was baptized in November 15, and Tagawa became known as he got an Orthodox Christian name, Pantelimon, at the age of 65. What do you think about this transformation and about weird ways that world has now? Like a guy from Japan came to America, made combat type movies.
Yeah, and ended up as an Orthodox Christian.
Yeah.
So he was like a Buddhist back in Japan.
I have no idea what he was back in Japan. What's the main religion there?
It's a lot of Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. That's interesting. He was 75 or something when he died. So
yes.
He had a long life. And if you have a long life, you also have plenty of time to go on different adventures, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And it reminds me of the thing that you can always change your faith. your repository of faith. You can change your religion, because those religions in the world today are conditioned by time, culture, a particular religious founder, Jesus Christ or Buddha or the Prophet Muhammad. But what Prabhupada points out is that your eternal faith, the Sanatan Dharma, you cannot change.
What's the difference between this and the regular faith in God?
Regular faith is conditional religion. It's something which is partly the function of the soul, which is to serve, and partly the function of the body, which would be to serve a particular church or particular faith or nation. And sometimes, quite often, frankly speaking, that leads to kind of conflict, because on the material platform, everybody looks at things in the duality.
Yeah, many
black and white,
quarrel.
Black and white, friend and enemy, etc. So quite often there are conflict. My religion is the only true path, and you would believe in a false god, etc., etc. But then you can go into your transcendental helicopter and move up and look at all these things. I used to say that God is like somebody sitting on the top of a mountain, looking down, and they see on the western side, eastern side, oh, there are the Christians climbing up, and oh, there are the Muslims climbing up, and there are the Jews climbing up from the same mountain. So God can see them all, but they don't see one another because they are,
Yes.
And there's another analogy is like God is like a jewel. You hold it to the light, and oh, it's yellow, oh, it's blue, green, now it's red. So for this person who is firmly established on a non-sectarian platform, working to make progress within the eternal religion, so to speak, the yoga with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he doesn't really have a problem with that there are different faiths, different religions. And Hinduism traditionally was a lot like that, and it still is, because it is, after all, the world's oldest religion belonging to that category. So it didn't really mind when the Christians came, and then came the Muslims, and they could, oh, there's another way to worship our God that we share. And so God is not a Christian, he's not a Jew, he's not a Christian, he's not even a Hindu. God is God. And then when you act on the spiritual platform of the soul, you don't really make those distinctions.
Do you still think that God is God? Yes, but if I come from Muslim or from Orthodoxy or from other religion, I'm guided by people who are in charge of these religious procedures in these churches. So most of the time it has to be people's interaction. And don't you think that the Mortal Kombat guy, he particularly was picky? At the beginning he addressed to Protestancy, but he never felt the depth. Why is it so? Because if you say he was climbing from one side of it, on the hill to the God, why he was not satisfied with his slope? Why did he try to change?
We all have our journeys, and we may accept teachers and masters on the way, and then they help us reach a certain level. But if you maintain a desire to actually find the supreme truth, you have to maybe give them up and then move on. I mean, it happened to me. I was reading the Bible a lot, and then some other Eastern books, and in person I read some books by a person called Jiddu Krishnamurti. I always liked
Krishnamurti.
I always liked his name.
I also liked that.
I liked his name, and I was totally impressed by the fact that he was a vegetarian. Because in my world, then I said, "Wow, how is it possible to be vegetarian?" I was on that level. So you have this, what Scripture calls Vartman Pradarshika Guru, those who meet you on your path and point you further It's not that they bring you, but they bring you. You can even ask a drunkard, where do I find the temple in Malmö? And he says, then he's kind of a Vartman Pradashika guru. But what strikes me with this Mortal Kombat man is that he showed, after all, some kind of sincerity, because he ended up with the Orthodox. The word Orthodox, that means people are actually sticking to the old tradition. They don't want to change, like the religious conservatives. That's the meaning of Orthodox, / fanatics sometimes even. So when he went there, he was probably looking for something original, authentic, something that hasn't gone through all the changes over time. So to me, it's a sign of intelligence. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I just want to point out, he was very clear. He said one should never criticize people of other faiths. One should never criticize people of other faiths.
If I go to Vaishnavism, there's an idea of Dikshu Guru and Shikshu Guru. Mm-hmm. So Dikshu, I guess, is when you accept a specific person and you kind of trust this person up to your death. Mm-hmm. Is it correct? Yeah. And Shikshu is someone that, as you say, you can change those teachers. So how does it work? Why it seems to be more strict in Vaishnavism than other religions? If you choose one, you stick to this one.
Well, some people have studied the lost years of Jesus Christ. There are almost 2 decades that completely gone from his life in the Chronicles. He was 12 or 13, and then he came back when he was 30 something, and spent a little time before they killed him. So he died very young, like 34, something like that. He was most presumably disciple of somebody in India. They have a lot of evidence.
So you think he was in India?
Yeah, that's a lot of evidence. That's probably a topic for another session here. But of course, it's very controversial because mainstream Christianity, just like any other of these materialistically inclined religion, so they propound that we have the only true, so if, let's say the Prophet Muhammad would have learned this spiritual life from somebody else, that no. So anyway, that's another side stuff. So Jesus had 12 disciples, 12 or 13, I'm not sure. And then some of them also had disciples. So you had like a miniature parampara going on, which Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Evam parampara pratamimam raja shayovidu. Raja means king. So that particular tradition that Krishna came to renew, because he also says that when there is a decline in religion and the irreligion is uprising, then he needs to interfere personally, or he sends somebody who is empowered by him. So in this particular case, when Arjuna was listening to the Lord speaking Bhagavad Gita, our Sampradaya, the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, was intact. It was still going on. So Krishna didn't have to come to renew. That wasn't broken. Mm-hmm. But the one that belonged to the royal kings, the saintly kings, that became broken. So therefore Krishna spoke it again to a prince, to Arjuna, to renew the royal Sampradaya. So now we know about basically 4 well-known Sampradaya, the Nimbarkacharya and Vallabhacharya, Ramanujacharya, etc. So they are like 4, but there are many more also, smaller ones. So when Krishna finds it required, so like in the case of Arjuna, then he comes down and he starts it again. He tells Arjuna, I speak this knowledge to you because you are my very dear friend and you accept what I'm saying. So Arjuna he didn't really start a new Sampradaya because we don't really see Arjuna. But Vyasadeva was there. He was the one who wrote down the Bhagavad Gita, and he wrote down what Sanjay saw, the secretary of Dhritarashtra. So Vyasadeva is part of our Sampradaya also. So there is interesting. Anyway, Sisha means disciple, and Shiksha, that means instruction. So if you have Shiksha gurus, that means you have maybe one or several teachers that are very qualified and that you trust and you serve and accept their instructions. Diksha guru, as you say, that means spiritual initiation, that the formal acceptance into the sampradaya, where you get a spiritual name, etc. And there's a special bond with the Diksha Guru, because he makes you a link in the disciplic succession.
I don't seem to know of that kind of link in Orthodoxy, in Christianity, in other religions. Why is it so important in Hinduism, in Vaishnavism?
Yeah, in Vaishnavism it's important because that's the way how transcendental knowledge is transmitted from generation to generation.
You can listen to many shikshas, as you say, but still you see the important thing is initiation stage with diksha.
Well, the tradition rests on 3 tracks. There is the guru, and the sadhu, and the shastra. And with guru, you generally indicate the diksha guru, although guru is a more generic name for anyone who teaches, you know. So you have the shiksha guru, and you have the diksha guru, and you have the vartma pradashika guru, you have the checha guru in the heart, which is Krishna. So there are many categories. But sadhu, it means a saintly, learned person in general, like that. Doesn't necessarily have to be your guru, the shiksha or diksha or anything else, but he's a sadhu. He's a renowned, spiritually advanced individual. But then you have shastra, which is the most important, and that's what they take the greatest effort to preserve. Like in the old days, they used to copy palm leaves like that, and then came, you know, the printing press, and now we're in the era where there is digital media like this. So it becomes more and more important to maintain the original version and status of the teachings. But if there are any doubts, you always compare. If the guru says something different from the sadhu and the shastra, then the guru is to be rejected. And if the sadhu and the guru says something but the shastra says something else, then you reject both the sadhu and the guru, because shastra always has the last word, if you know that it's been preserved properly. But there are also shastras which are a little bit, you know, suspicious, so one should be careful. Different translations and different editions and like that.
Wasn't Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also rejected when he spoke differently from what scriptures told?
No, I mean, you have some categories of the so-called Smarta Brahmanas. For the same reason, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that we just honored his disappearance day, Mahaprabhu didn't place any particular demands on people who would be accepted and given Krishna's mercy. They could be coming from a very low caste, meat-eater, drunkards, you know. And this was the mood of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. And there were people in India, those so-called Smarta Brahmanas, said you have to be born a Brahmana. If you are not born a Brahmana, then you can't be a Brahmana, you can't be a Vaishnava, you can be anything. But Bhaktisiddhanta and Mahaprabhu, he said that a Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmana. And it becomes that by qualification, not by birth. So that's a very big difference. You show that you have the qualities, of a Brahmana or Vaishnava, then you become accepted as such.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was like more about, I want to sing the holy names and dance and not just do whatever you do with your scriptures. So, and
he started off as a very, very learned person. As a child, he was called Nimai Pandit, and he was smashing all the so-called learned, you know, impersonalists and Smarta Brahmanas very nicely. He had his talks later with Prakashananda Saraswati, with Samarbhoma Bhattacharya. It was unbeatable. This
Is it documented anywhere? This kind of
in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and to some extent in the Chaitanya Mangala is written by Lochan Das Thakur, and his appearance day is coming up also now in a few days. So, but this is all given, and the very proud, learned Pandit Keshava Kashmiri, that nobody wanted to debate with. He was expert in Sanskrit, and then he challenged everybody, and they just said, no, here's a paper, you already defeated me. They couldn't stand the public humiliation. So he became very proud of his scholarship, but then Mahaprabhu simply challenged him. And this Keshava Kashmiri, he on the spot composed 100 shlokas in glorification of Mother Ganga, the river. And Mahaprabhu completely shredded it. He pointed out all errors and also what was good with it. And it completely shocked this Pandit. So being a Vaishnava doesn't mean that you're sentimental or that you reject scriptures or just dance and chant. But you don't see any point of, showing off at a big philosophical scholar like that. They simply enjoy dancing and chanting, taking prasadam and like that. That's a greater joy than being rubber stamped, a great scholar, and everybody else, feels defeat.
Still, if I go back a little bit and think of a person who is searching for some kind of religion, he most probably would just link to another person, not a specific, not thinking he's diksha, he's shiksha. But now that he advances in Vaishnavism, there is a step called initiation. Mm-hmm. So why is it so important? I'm not sure. I think it's also the case in Christianity, baptization.
Yeah, then they are all like, in a sense, Ritviks, believing that there's only one pure guru, and that's Jesus. And he died and bled on the cross for our sins. So
I never understood that.
No, many people are I speak to some confessed Christian, but that's one point they can't really comprehend. But in the Vedic or Vaishnava tradition, means that you have to show some qualification. So you cannot be connected genuinely to the disciplic succession unless you follow the 4 regulative principles and you chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which was the standard that His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada established for his institution, ISKCON. So there is a big difference there than just, okay, now I'm born again, and it's something else, Mm-hmm. So you show you're qualified and you're determined and you have reached a certain level of purity because you gave up some heavy sinful activities, and then some qualified Diksha Guru can take charge. Because there's also in the scripture that when a Diksha Guru accepts a disciple, he takes on the sinful reactions of that disciple, which is a heavy responsibility. And that's probably from where this concept of Jesus Christ bled and died on the cross for our sins. So if I say I'm a disciple of Jesus, then I give my dirty sins to him. Like this, but that's not really the way it works. Mm-hmm. It's if you don't mind, I'll just explain very shortly basically 3 concepts of mercy. So the mercy I'm just talking about is that I'm completely helpless, I just continue committing sin, what can I do? Jesus will anyway suffer for my sins. This is in the Vedic scriptures compared to the mercy of a tiger or a lion, because the tiger picks up the cub in the mouth and carry it, and the cub just hangs, it can't do anything while the mama is carrying it. So this is the kind of mercy. Then you have the other extreme, which is the mercy of the monkey. That means that the mama, she goes and the kid is just climbing with the feet and the hand and hanging there under the belly, because if he loosens he will just fall, So we have in Sweden, like in Lutheranism, is that you have to work, you have to suffer, you have to sweat and really struggle and endeavor for the Lord, and you whip yourself, my sins, Yeah. So probably, I don't find that in Russia too, I'm not sure, but
That's true.
Yeah, this kind of sound a bit orthodox.
Suffering.
But then they have the Vaishnava conception of guru and mercy, which is very balanced. They say that we are sinful, we're just like we're falling into this black well, you know, and we're in the bottom there, swimming in steep walls, we can't climb up, we are struggling to keep afloat. And then the spiritual master comes and looks down, and throws you a rope. And then you're struggling, you catch the rope and you hold on to it, and the spiritual master pulls you up. So that means you do your part, and the guru does his part, right? So you can see the parallel. When you come to Krishna consciousness, you're a little bit curious, you have some faith, this is called Shraddha, and then you decide, well, I have to meet these people more often. Sadhu Sangha, you meet with the saintly people. And then you stay with the saintly people and you decide to participate in devotional activities of worship. Bhajana Kriya, that's the next step. It's still you. You decide, you use your free will. And then by engaging in devotional service, you reach the stage of anartha nivritti. You gradually become purified. You understand that, yeah, devotional service, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I gradually start to see myself more and more as a spiritual being, as an eternal servant of Krishna and his devotees. And I see the other people also as servants of Krishna. And then you come up to the, ruchi, then Krishna gives you taste and like that. And asakti, it gives you attachment. And bhava, it gives you Krishna consciousness. You think about Krishna, and ultimately he gives you love. So in the beginning, it's a lot of up to you. I have to do my part. I go to the temple, I chant my rounds, I do my worship, this. And Krishna's observing, good, yeah, nice, he's making progress. And then more and more purified, and then you start giving. Okay, here you get some faith, nishta, you get faith, and now you get taste, and now you get, like this. So it's kind of both.
I want to continue with a situation I think many people encounter. For example, they already have some religion, maybe they're born into Christianity, but now that they find a lot of useful knowledge in Vedic culture, like myself, should they actually convert fully into Vaishnavism? Or should they, so how is it, sitting on two chairs, or when it comes to picking your Diksha Guru, when you have to, confess and just, follow only that guy, how it works when you have two religions?
This comes very natural. Srila Prabhupada said several times, you don't have to give up anything. You just add Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is such a powerful medicine. Taking prasadam, chanting the holy name, reading scriptures. So gradually you will elevate yourself. So it's not like you're Christian one day, you go to bed, and next morning you wake up as a devotee, a Vaishnava. No, it's a gradual process. There was one example, a friend of mine who was a devotee, she had a big family, and she educated herself to become a priest in the Christian church. And she used all her Vaishnava knowledge to give very nice and inspiring sermons during the Mass in the church. So she was both without any problem. It's just that if you're a devotee at heart, that will shine through.
But that lady, she had Diksha Guru, right?
Yeah, I think she got initiated, yeah, also. And then you think that, you don't have to give up your priesthood or something. You continue to do what you do. Prabhupada said that to many of his disciples. You don't have to move into the ashram and shave your head, and you just continue to do what you do in society. Some pursued an academic career. Not so. Prabhupada knew, and this is one of the characteristics of a spiritual master. He knows exactly how to engage his disciple in the best way, so he can use his abilities, his qualities, but in devotional service, instead of searching for fruitive rewards or fame or wealth or whatever it is.
So it's not a requirement when you get initiated by Diksha, you're not required to dress up like an Indian.
Maybe during the ceremony you should, but otherwise, if you have your engagement in society, it's up to the spiritual master to guide you to remain like that.
I guess there's also a big point in Vaishnavism about this assembly of people. That's one of the leading forces on the way of development in Krishna consciousness. how does it work when I have, for example, to visit in the church, the regular church, versus visiting Sunday programs at Malmo yoga center, Bhakti yoga center?
Yeah. I mean, if you become friends with the devotees, they know who you are, and then it doesn't really matter how you're dressed, but
dressed,
you are dressed, what kind of outfit you're wearing, but. Dressed like for men in dhoti and kurta, wearing tilak, neck beads, and like that. It's like a uniform. And if somebody walks in the door, generally that is a devotee. I mean, of course, it could be somebody just dressed up like a devotee. But meeting with devotees like this, we are always family, even if they come, you know, a car full of people from Copenhagen or anyway, dressed like the, come on, But well, in the church, we know you came to the church because you have some faith, but you may not be a full-time practicing Vaishnava like that. And full-time, I mean, in your heart. I mean, doesn't mean you stay in ashram all the time, but if you have a responsible work and you carry it out in the mood of Krishna consciousness, and maybe you give a good part of your salary as when you go to the temple and do service, you have your readings and chantings at home, you offer prasadam. Basically, you're more or less a full-time devotee, even though you don't wear the dress all the time. No?
This series is about healing the camel. So in Somalia, they have a tradition of healing the camel with singing. For example, in this particular video, a she-camel had recently given birth but became depressed and refused to eat or stand or move. And the young owner tried some traditional herbs first, but nothing worked out, and the whole community gathered in that site. And eventually it works because finally the camel stood up. There's a more scientific explanation that camels are highly social and emotionally sensitive animals. They can recognize familiar voices easily, particularly those of kids, caretakers.
It's the song
assembly, yeah.
They do. Did they do anything else? And the singing for the camel? Gave it water or?
So they gave her like some herbs. I don't know how it works, but I believe it works also in human society.
I was thinking about that. You get both food and entertainment, right?
Like on a Sunday program in Malmo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's interesting. They're sentient beings. I mean, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he makes this taxonomy of, consciousness, like in immovable living beings like trees and plants, and there's barely any consciousness. And then you go up a little bit, the reptiles and fishes and birds and insects, and then it's a little more. And then you come, like the quadrupeds, horses and cows, and so it goes more and more evolving consciousness. And then you have human beings, which are like on the top of the crown jewel of the evolution ladder. And we're sentient beings, and animals are sentient beings, and we react to pain. We react if you speak harshly and aggressively to an animal, they will also react. And if you're nice, so it's not really surprising that they can, pamper a camel and present food and present entertainment, and it became the focus of almost like worship. We present singing and food to the deities as well, as a way to please them.
I also think that singing is a special kind of ritual in human culture in general, because it's not the same as talking. When people sing, it turns differently. There like some special aura about the place where it happens. Like when we congregate and sing Hare Krishna, it's different from lecturing. And these guys are just not explaining to the camel, please, camel, we love you, blah, blah, blah. They sing, and they singing quite rhythmically.
There are descriptions of the spiritual world, that it's self-illuminating, that every sentence is a song, every step is a dance.
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita actually. Yeah. Gita means
Gita
song.
means song. So that's when we recite the Gita, we always have a melody for the different verses, like that, because Krishna was singing, the Bhagavan, the Lord, was singing the Gita to Arjuna. So by singing and dancing, it's like a natural... creativity is a natural language of the soul. It comes from the soul, and it's actually used originally as expression of love and affection for the recipient. It's kind of a service. You serve the senses of the audience or the object. So to sing and dance is one step, but if you sing with transcendental sound vibration, the lyrics are, for example, the Hare Krishna mantra, then it gets even a more transcendental and pure quality to it. Mm. When you dance, like Bharatanatyam, the Indian dance, they depict different pastimes of the Lord, different leelas, then it gets another spiritual dimension. So one may say that the creativity coming from, dance and song is a little closer step to a spiritual dimension. But when you give that expression a full spiritual content, then it's actually a real devotional service, because it's meant to please Krishna.
So the people who are newbies, who come to a Vedic center and they hear those chants, those songs, they do not really understand the words. Do you think it makes sense for them to explain the meaning, or just let's sing with us?
Yeah, it's also recommended that it's stated that the holy name of Krishna is known different from Krishna. And that's kind of a high esoteric knowledge. And it's recommended not to teach that to everybody. Then it's better come, sing and have fun with us. It's like you give a headache pill to somebody and you don't have to explain its constituent and how it works in the brain. But simply by taking it, you will be relieved from your headache in 20 minutes or something like that. So hearing the Hare Krishna mantra or even participating in singing it gives eternal spiritual benefit to the practitioner who does that without knowing the exact intricate details. But for a devotee or Vaishnava, it's always nice to know that Krishna is known different from his holy name, and his leelas are known different. It's a nice piece of knowledge, but that's only for the faithful. What Mahaprabhu did, he was inviting everybody to participate and like that, but he may not have getting into the esoteric, deeper meaning of things like this.
Now I'm thinking of that camel video. What is more important, to put holy names in the song that you sing, so it kind of has its own effect on people or whoever, or it's more important to put your heart into the song, like these Somalis people did, because probably they did not sing the names of Lord, they just sang something. What's more important, do you think?
They probably their hearts were filled with well-wishing feelings for the camel, which is nice. The soul in the camel body is also a spark of Krishna, part and parcel. But it's particularly in religious practice, it's always better to put your heart in what you're doing when you pray, meditate, and worship, than just do it mechanically, professionally. Krishna is called Bhava Grahi Janardan. Janardan is the name of God. Bhava means the mood and mentality, and Grahi means the one who grasps, who takes, like there's someone, Saragrahi, it's also known, the one who grasps the essential, like that. So Krishna, he sees the heart, he sees the intention of his devotees, and simply be a very learned scholar, a brahmana, do all the perfect circles on the altar and like that. If you don't do that out of devotion, then that's not so attractive. But even if you're doing some imperfect circles, but you're really full of Krishna when you do that, he doesn't care so much if there are some mistakes. Similarly, like in the Bhagavatam is no different from Krishna, but if somebody is serious in presenting the message of Bhagavatam, it's a famous verse, Tadvad Visargo Janataga Viplavo, that even if there are some irregularities in the text, it still will have the effect like this. So it's the essence that is important. That being said, one should not use this as an excuse to do a sloppy work, because if you are focused on Krishna's pleasure, you do want to do everything really nice and perfect for cooking, you know. But you know, there's a wide spectrum. You had Raghunath Das Goswami, a very special devotee. He was very, very much renounced from the world. He went to basically the compost. They threw away old prasadam, and it took some old rotten rice and washed away.
Why did he throw away?
No, that came from the temple. Maybe they had huge quantities, and there was not enough people to feed, or so not even the animals. They gave it to the animals first, but meanwhile it went bad. So that was so rotten that not even the cows wanted to eat it. So he took and he washed with a lot of water and took the inner core of rice and took that because it was prasadam, you know. And Mahaprabhu said, "Why are you keeping all this nectar to yourself? Give me some." So how can I understand the exchange between elevated devotees like that? With somebody that I can't offer you anything than, you know, some dried chapatis, like to Krishna. Krishna says, "Come on, you can give me a little bit of salt at least." You know, so this is, you know, but this is no very elevated platform. So we should really endeavor to, whatever we know, our abilities. Krishna says in the Gita, "Yad karoshi yad ashnasi yad juhosi dadasi yad." You do it as an offering to me, you know. Krishna sees the mentality, but we have to do our part of it, you know. So whatever we do becomes an offering to Krishna, and he puts him in the center, and we try to do it as nicely and as pleasing as possible for him. So that's the full idea.
In the process of doing things, people tend to not to forget Krishna, but to, you know, to react to their material disturbances that happen to them, like some other people, how they interact. They think they are not following the Krishna consciousness. I should teach them the lesson or something. So, in that sense, there's many questions, but I don't think we need to discuss them all, and we can just wrap up for today.
Yeah, it's many things to talk about when it comes to spiritual life, like that. So
eternity to spend.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't know what is Krishna, then he very mercifully appears as the spiritual master, but also as the deity form, so one can have a little altar at home with some forms of the deity when you can offer your food to, and flowers, and sing before, meditate before. Then that becomes, you know, that's a beginner's vision, that Krishna is the deity. But as you make advancement, it expands. You start to see God in the hearts of every living being, and that is actually non-different from everything that exists, more or less. But it's a gradual development.
Okay, thank you, Madhava Puri.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.